He's going to feel a little funny probably because he's usually on the other side of the microphone asking the questions, and you may recognize the face, perhaps the voice, but Terry Doyle, thanks for joining me. You're the station. Well, what's the long version of your title here at YourTV?
So the business card says Manager of Programming and Community Relations for Cogeco, but obviously for running the YourTV stations, which is the Sarnia station, the Chatham station, and the Windsor station.
Wow.
So all three. And community relations ties into our, obviously, Cogeco being part of the community.
Right.
And our interactions with community leaders, with politicians, things like that, where we're representing Cogeco as a whole in the community.
Well, and I guess that's YourTV.
Exactly.
That was a new brand that just came in a few years ago now.
I want to say, I even have to think about that, 18, somewhere around that time.
Has it been that long?
I think it has. I have to, don't forget, we had that little 2020, 2021 area that we just forget about what happened in the world.
The longest 2 weeks of our life?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So we have that. So it was a brand to kind of give us that combination of distinguish yourself a little bit from, the Cogeco side, because we always have those people that would, come to us and say, hey, can you help me out? Or I have a question about my internet or my TV service. And just to give them a little separation, we do what we can, or help people get to the right person. If I don't have the information, I help them get to the right person. We don't just obviously cast them aside, because we're all in this together under the Cogeco umbrella, but knowing where we can help.
Yeah,
but just a little, and it helps because then it avoids that person maybe calling us when they're going, rather than making that call, an extra call.
Yeah.
They know, okay, YourTV, okay, that's the local TV station. And obviously it's generated by the community.
Yeah.
The community's involved. I always say YourTV is the community being reflected back on itself. What's going on in the community. It's a hub of what's going on in the community. You think of most of the things that people would talk about around the water cooler, around, if that still happens around Sarnia, Lambton, we've touched on it somewhere. Sting games, municipal politics. Municipal politics has been an interesting thing over the last while. That's a whole different thing. But just in general, events, Christmas parade, Canada Day parade, those things that most people have talked about are going on in the community. And with our Sarnia Lambton Today program, touching on so many things, that's the idea that if it's going on in the area, we've touched it somewhere. Yeah,
you've got quite a viewership as well. I gotta I remember, we recently collaborated and put the show on, and cable. I was always like, everybody's cutting the cord. Like, I don't know. I was more of a social media thing. I'm totally blown away by people come up and go, I watched your show, and I always ask where, and they're like, oh, on my cable channel. Like, there really is a much larger viewership on cable than I think people realize.
It's sort of like, it's one of those things, and I've, that story you just told, I've heard that many times over the years. Yeah. Still, if I had a loony for every time I heard that, I remember going back to when either Barry Wright or Kelly Ash had talk shows with us.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the story they would hear from somebody. Oh, okay, yeah, does anybody watch that? And they go on, and the next day they realize, okay, so I was on your show last night. I got stopped at the pharmacy on the way home. I got stopped at the grocery store the next day. I was in line, coffee. Somebody spotted me in the drive-thru. Yeah. It's like, oh, there's a lot more people watching that than I thought.
It just happened to me this morning.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that's I've heard that story so many times.
So that's good for you.
Well, that's where we kind of organically, it's like, okay, you'll figure it out very quickly. Come on the show, come on one of our shows. You'll figure it out very quickly. And, obviously as someone who's grown up on camera in this industry, I know myself that, you would get that, recognition. And so knowing that as much as I say, what we hear in the news of what people's viewing habits are, proof is in the pudding, as somebody bugging you this morning.
That's right. Well, it's never a bother, but I know what you mean for sure. Let's go back. I always go back to the beginning. You're from Peterborough originally.
I am.
Born and raised?
Born in England.
Oh, okay.
Born in England, moved back to Peterborough. Family from Peterborough. Born in England, moved back when I was 6 months old.
Okay.
So other than my birth certificate or what it says on my passport, I wouldn't know I was born in England because
I don't believe you. Let's see. Prove the birth certificate.
Sorry, it doesn't come out. Yes, that sounds. We're back into U.S. politics for a moment. Yeah.
How was growing up, mom and dad, all that stuff? You're an only child, which I said that explains a lot.
Only child of what basically was a single mother.
Oh, wow.
My mom, my parents split when I was, that 6 months old spot.
Oh, okay.
So my mom who was from Peterborough, came back to Peterborough And so never had any connection with that side of the family. Kind of funny story that actually came up recently. Well, first of all, as I said, so the only connections I had was with my mother's side.
Right.
And then it was funny where I knew as a kid, my mother had sort of kept in touch or sent a couple photos back to England or things like that to my grandmother. That was the only contact. But from what I recall, I don't think there was necessarily contact coming back the other way. Funny story was about a year ago, ended up making contact with a gentleman who would be, I guess you'd call it like half uncle.
Okay.
It's one of those where turns out my grandmother got remarried and had a child, and that's so this person, so basically my father, who I've never had any contact with, and this gentleman would be like stepbrothers or half brothers. So he, all of a sudden, I guess my grandmother had passed away many years ago, unbeknownst to me. He had these pictures of me and my mother. And through a family friend who was doing into like genealogy work, and I kind of told him my story a few years ago, and he said, you know what, I like doing that. He's retired. He likes doing that for a living. Not for a living. He likes doing that as a hobby. He said, you know what, I'll do some searching around. And he said, funny, I can't find anything on your, like, that side of the family. And through, somehow or another, through one of the websites that does that, somehow these two people got talking. And this realized, and then this person, the family connection that I have, said, I think I may have gotten in touch with someone. And they got talking, and next thing you know, he sends me like 4 pictures. And I recognized one of the pictures right away. It was me and my mother at the home that my mother would have grown up in Peterborough. I recognized it right away at the door. It's been renovated since. And then she turns out, said yes. So that was the story. So now this person was trying to track his mother's stuff, information. She had died like, I think late mid-80s, for example. And so, going through that, but it was very interesting. So, we haven't talked in a little while. We emailed each other back and forth a little bit. And so he was just trying to do some, genealogy searching, and two people ran into each other.
And there's that common saying, it's a small world, right? And you just never know what's going to come around full circle. So single mom growing up, like, did your mom ever remarry or meet somebody?
Nope. And
she just raised you?
Just raised me, and she actually passed away when I was 14. So it was a case where she was, and you know what, it was once she was a real estate agent, and a lot of late nights and long hours and things like that. So you know what, she did an awesome job of, knowing, okay, I'm going to be a little bit later home. So it was funny. It was always the joke her friends would say that, I was spoiled because I'd come home from school. There'd be some money sitting on the counter to order myself pizza.
Right.
There were 2 things. It was either chicken fingers and fries or pizza. Because I figured out how could I get as much out of the $10 at the time. We're talking 1980s money here.
See, I would have tried to get something for $5 and pocket the rest.
But the same thing, it was where I lived. I had to be delivered.
Yeah.
So back then, it was funny. I could get a small pizza and 2 cans of pop. It was $9.20 delivered.
Wow.
Yes, I still remember that to this day.
Did you tip the guy?
Yeah, he kept the 10.
Okay,
he kept the $10. But once again, so it's not quite a 10% tip. But hey, I was 13 years old. That was a big deal. But there was that because she might be coming home, come home from school at 3:30 from high school, grade 8 or into grade 9, and then she'd be home maybe a little bit after. Not very long. Yeah. And I had friends in the neighborhood, and the friends and their parents kind of, and at that age you don't necessarily know what's happening, but I know now they were always keeping an eye out.
Sure.
They knew, okay, he's,
And they knew the situation too, likely single mom and everything.
Exactly. So they probably knew, and there was probably communications happening behind the scenes I didn't know, where she might have given one of them a heads up. Hey, heads up, I'm probably not going to be home till around 7 at night. So it's one of those, I might go home, I had a computer, so do something on my computer or watch a bit of TV. Next thing you know, we're probably out playing road hockey.
Right.
And then, grab my dinner, all those kinds of things. So learn to kind of fend for myself a little bit as necessary. But she, unfortunately, she had a few different bouts of cancer and passed away when I was 14.
Oh, sorry. So 14, mom's gone. Mm-hmm. Now where?
So I ended up moving in with my uncle, who'd be her brother.
Okay.
So, it's quite a story where imagine somebody thinking, so basically I had a 38-year-old uncle-ish, 38 I believe he was at the time, or pushing 40, who inherited a 14-year-old.
Well,
that makes for dynamic. That almost makes for a TV show.
Good times, right?
A reality show.
Right, yeah.
And this is someone, and you know what?
And was he married?
No.
So he was a single guy?
40-year-old bachelor inheriting a 14-year-old.
Wow.
So, and he was actually at the time, he was actually legally blind from a brain tumor that he had. So talk about overcoming adversity.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know which was the more adversity. I said this tongue in cheek. The brain tumor or dealing with me.
Right.
So
were you a difficult teenager?
I don't think so, but
No?
other people might disagree. No, I think I look at it from that standpoint that, like, he put a roof over my head, made sure I was fed and everything like that. He didn't drive. But luckily, my aunt, his sister, my mom's sister, she was kind of the one that kind of kept an eye on us, and she picked up my uncle every day, first thing in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, like on the nose.
Is that right?
Would pick her up, would pick my uncle up, take him to the gym, and then he would work his way back to the house through the city bus in Peterborough. He had a routine. He knew where everything was.
So it was family support all around.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. When I say legally blind, like, it'd be one of those where you and I here, he'd know you're there, but it'd be a blur.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So he knew in this case, that's why people would know, walk up to him, say hi. Usually he'd recognize the voice.
Yeah.
Or if it was someone who knew him well, but didn't see him all the time, introduce, almost say, hey, Peter, it's Dave.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, so there was no question of who it was.
So you grew up in that sense of the word of, single mom to single guy to, how long did you stay with him before you took off and left the nest?
So I lived with him, and so basically I was in in my 20s, I was in a relationship and kind of gradually moved away from the nest until I bought my own house.
Yeah.
Type situation in Peterborough.
Okay.
But so
what were you working at this time?
I was working in TV.
Yeah. How did you get started in that? How did that come into your life?
So the TV side of it, I was probably 12-ish or something like that. My mother bought a camcorder. Camcorder, bought the high 8 camcorder or 8mm camcorder. So she bought that and one of the furniture stores. And you imagine, once again, we're talking late 80s money. They were pretty expensive at the time. But she was, obviously wanted to make sure I had,
thousands.
Yeah, there was definitely 4 numbers in the price. I'm guessing it might have been a 1, but still.
Yeah.
But either way. And so I'd mess around with it, little videos. And a buddy of mine at the time, we'd even go to his cottage. And his cottage was about an hour from Peterborough. We'd make silly little videos, like turn the camera upside down and the cat would be walking on, look like the cat's walking on.
Oh, yeah, right.
Or take the 2-liter bottle of pop and pour it, but turn the camera upside down, the pop's going reverse.
You could have been Tom Green.
Could have been.
That's how he got started.
Just making videos.
Yeah.
So at the time, his dad, my buddy's dad, he said, if you guys are interested in this, you should look into what is now YourTV Peterborough.
Yeah.
He said, you guys should look into it. They have a volunteer program. So sure enough, we looked into it. I know I approached them. His dad had already been doing a little bit of stuff with them, but I had approached as well. And, at 13 was a little young to be a volunteer.
Okay.
Usually volunteers are 15, 16, that kind of thing. But they had me come in for a quick little interview to see, okay, I always say, I came in at 13. They want to know if I was 13 going on 16 or 13 going on 9.
Right.
If I was 13 going on 9, they'd probably say, come back later. But no, they were good. So I did a weekend workshop where they taught me, how to use the cameras and focusing and zooming and things like that. Stuff that happens now.
Yeah.
But we did that. And then next thing you know, at 13, I was doing camera for Peterborough Pete's games.
Wow.
I was the third. There were 3 cameras. I was the third camera, which was at the rink in Peterborough at the time had a stage at the one end. So I was in front of the stage, as the third camera up. And early on in that season, there was 1 camera at center ice, 1 camera in the far corner up on the concourse level, and then I was down at ice level at the end zone.
Right.
So the number 1, the main camera operator, he had left. He was volunteer as well, like we're all volunteers, and he had gone off to school or whatever it was early in the season. The number 2 was too tall to be where the camera was, because imagine the concourse. I guess to use maybe Sarnia Arena as an example, because obviously most people wouldn't know the layout of the Peterborough Memorial Center. At the time, imagine a camera being on the concourse, but then there was like an overhang, which was where the press boxes were and things like that. So there was like an overhang. So there was only so much room. Mm-hmm. Well, the number 2 was too tall.
Right.
So here I'm I'm up next. I'm up next. And it was like a scaffold. You're basically on a scaffolding that, let's be honest, now in 2025 standards wouldn't pass.
No, not at all.
There was no ladder to get up. You basically put 1 foot on the standing room railing, another one, reached up the scaffold, pull yourself up.
You would not get away with that now.
No. Back then the rules were a little different. And so, but did that. I can remember back then, we're talking Eric Lindros playing for the Oshawa Generals. I remember they had the headset open one night, in the truck, and I heard them say, I can't believe we have a sold-out crowd, Eric Lindros in town, and a 13-year-old on our main camera.
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
And just kept on, and then that was...
But you did it.
Yeah, and for me, did a lot, and that was huge. Got a chance to do, you name it, everything, behind the scenes, and eventually tried some on-air stuff, and went from there. It was always like, oh, you're going to give me a little chance? The door's open a little bit? Okay, I'll kick the door open a little further. And, that's how...
You recognized opportunity when
that's exactly it.
In front of you, yeah.
Yeah.
And you, was that your first love for hockey, was doing that? Or did you already have, you talked about road hockey, so were you already a hockey fan at this point?
I was a hockey fan, and I remember when I was younger, I would go to some Peterborough Pete's games, either with family or I was part of Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was a little.
Oh, nice.
So my big would sometimes take me to games as well. So yeah, got into it from that standpoint. I joked there was one night when I was young, I was probably 9-ish. There was an Oshawa Peterborough bench clearing brawl that I was at, and I still think of. And I got talking, one of the people who was playing for Oshawa at the time, his son was Connor Murphy, who played here for the Sting.
Oh, yeah. So
Gord Murphy, I got talking to Gord, and we got talking, and said, yeah, I was in that game. And he said, yeah, I didn't do very well in the brawl, let's put it that way. But back then, it's a little kinder, gentler hockey.
You must have, because then, move forward to Sarnia now, and the interviews that you've done, like the hockey players, the baseball, is there one big name that stands out to you, or not even necessarily a big name, but somebody you were talking to that just an interview that really stands out of all the ones you've done?
There's so many, and that's the thing. It's almost like picking your favorite of certain things.
Yeah, right.
But no, I will say, so and just sort of maybe tie the loop together. So yeah, started as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And I'd say doing behind the scenes, then got a chance to do on camera and play-by-play for even like Atom hockey and what was midget hockey at the time. Did lots of curling and things like that. Yeah. And I actually, one of my mentors, who I didn't, at the time I was too young to know he was mentoring me. He was the horse track announcer in Peterborough. And so we would get paired together.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, so we got paired together. But he would always be sort of like, so we're getting ready to start the show. And I'm thinking, you're the experienced one. Grant Wade was his name. So you're the experienced one. But he said, no, you start the show. You start it. And at the time I was like, okay, but what I think I realized later was, and unfortunately he's no longer with us, and I never got a chance to kind of recognize that and tell him, but I think he was letting me, you're learning, you steer the ship.
Right.
I'm here to pick you up.
Yeah.
I'm here to pick you up if if you get tongue-tied, if you get lost, I'm here to fill in the blanks. But
he obviously had confidence in you.
Yeah, and looking at that, and we had fun. I can remember, imagine little Atom hockey players.
Right.
So we got the kid's coming towards us, and we're trying to figure out his number. So, because he's coming towards, we can't see. Then he turns his back, the jersey's so far tucked into his pants, you can't figure out what number it is. Grant almost fell out of the booth laughing because I'm on air. It's like, and we'll see his number when he turns around, and it's tucked into his pants. I think Grant almost fell out of the booth laughing. And
he had one of those. That?
Yeah, I think he had one of those huge laughs. But I got a chance to do so many things.
Play-by-play,
arm wrestling. But I also got a chance to do, and the name of the show, and I know the radio here had it for years. Swap Shop.
Oh yeah,
people would phone in, buy,
I
sell
did that
stuff.
a couple of times. It's fun.
But you know what? It taught me how to fill.
Yeah,
you go 10 minutes without a call.
Yeah, and you got to talk about something, and you got to kill it till the next commercial.
And also you get I had prank calls sometimes.
Oh yeah,
and how to deal with that
before they had the delay button.
Well, or but actually that's when call display was coming in.
Oh yeah.
So of course we got one person back where they said whatever it was. They said, I've got some video games to sell, and then said something about me or something like that. So I said, we seem to have lost Johnny. But if the control room can get me Johnny's number, we'll make sure you've got his number if you're interested in those video games. I think I gave his number out 8 times.
Yeah.
Johnny called back.
Johnny,
I don't remember his name. Johnny called back to say, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Please stop giving out my number. Gotcha. So
yeah, right.
That's one. But yeah.
Don't mess with the guy with the microphone.
No.
That's what I always say.
But yeah, got into that, then, kind of, giving you the whole resume here. But basically, from that, ended up as a high school co-op at the CBC affiliate station in Peterborough. Okay. So it was a high school co-op. It was a competitive position. There was somebody else up for it as well, but they liked I had some experience. And they treated the spring co-op as training to fill in for people on vacation. And it was more technical behind the scenes.
Sure.
But did that. And then it was there. My first paid shift was still during my co-op, but they needed someone, obviously if you're co-oping, you're shadowing. but no, someone was off, so now we need to bring you in as the person. My first paid shift was the Oklahoma City bombing day.
Oh, wow.
I remember it because my shift started at noon, and I walked in at 11:30, and they'd cut into programming. They carried Prices Right at 11 o'clock. They cut it, the programming had been cut into. It was the Oklahoma City bombing. That's why I remember so well. But did that, worked behind the scenes, and eventually worked my way in there as doing some on-air, learned the newsroom side of it, because they had a daily newscast. Learned the newsroom side of it, the sports, worked with the sports people and the news people, and as, first of all, camera operator and some work, but then how to write scripts. Same thing, had some opportunities.
There's so many moving parts, right, that people, don't realize, like you mentioned the scripts and the timing, and got to get all the sponsors in, and there's so much going on that makes really the person in front of the camera look good, if one thing doesn't go right. There's got to be a lot of coordination that goes on with all of that.
Oh, back then you think of, you have your producers, creating the show, all your reporters who are, their stories have to be in. You're getting this 2-minute story about what's going on with, with a construction site, but it has to be in on time. It has to be done properly. The graphics have to be created. Back then we had a teleprompter operator, a tape operator. These were, every story was on a tape.
Yeah.
Tape operator. We were coordinating feeds from CBC Toronto and making sure we knew the story was coming in, but having that story, there were times we would take the story, the 6 o'clock news from CBC Toronto, take their first story, record it, and boom, turn it around on tape.
Yeah.
Basically record it, rewind that tape right to the beginning, and play it on air. Yeah. There was one
just in time.
Our news anchor was starting their lead into the story as the feed was just ending of the story, and I had to turn it around very quickly, but did that, and then, as I got interested, because I'd done on air with what's now YourTV as well, I was interested. So there was one of the longtime news anchors. They had him fill in for sports every little while, but he wasn't a sports guy. So I thought, okay, but I want to, I kind of helped him on the sports, but I helped him on the sports side. But as helping him on sports, I was learning how to write the scripts, how the software wrote the scripts, and things like that. So I helped him. I was maybe working a shift on camera, but I'd come in a few hours early and help with that. And would do that. And sure, some people kind of raised an eyebrow, like, oh, you're supposed to come in at your shift at 4. Why are you here at 2? Well, because I want to learn.
Because I'm learning.
And unfortunately, some people didn't like that. Some people
making them look bad, Terry.
Well, or in an environment, in the workplace environment, they didn't like that. But you know what? It was not harming anyone.
Yeah.
And this guy appreciated it. So the funny story was what happened one weekend. I thought, oh, he's coming in to do, I'll come in and help him. He never showed up. Found out nobody told him that he was scheduled in.
Oh.
He was at his home in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia.
Oh.
So the news anchor, so they were thinking about, the sports director thought, I know you can do it, but it was a unionized environment. He thought, I might get in trouble because there's other things. That's fine. So what happened was, I wrote the sports, I created the whole sports cast for the news anchor, and she read it. And it was funny, little pull behind the curtain, and she was always worried about sports pronunciations. She knows people know how to pronounce the names. She thought, if I don't know how to pronounce them, this is going to look bad.
Yeah.
So I literally was sitting beside the anchor desk with her obviously the camera, but I was sitting, so we'd go into a story, she'd come back, Kafelnikov? It was like a tennis update. Kafelnikov? Yeah, okay, Kafelnikov. And then do that, and literally off camera.
That's a skill in itself, Terry. Like fast forward now to Sarnia, when you've been doing the play-by-play for the Sarnia Sting for how many years now?
Well, let's see. I was here. So when I got here in 2007, I was doing, Lee Cunningham and I were doing the games. He was doing play-by-play. I was doing color and hosting. And then fall of 2008, or fall of 2008, my years blend together. He went to Saginaw. I jumped over the play-by-play chair. I'd already been doing play-by-play previously for different entities around the OHL and obviously with some stuff in Peterborough, but jumping in to do some play-by-play for some other teams in the league at the time. But for the Sting as the play-by-play chair would be October of 2008.
Yeah, nice. Lee Cunningham, you bring him up. Boy, he's quite a guy. We know him well, don't we?
Lee and I go back to when he was in North Bay.
Yeah.
Oh, I did color for him for probably 20 games in I think it was 01-02 season, the last year in North Bay.
Oh, yeah, I forgot he was North Bay too, right? Yeah. There's a guy you got around. Had him on the show, and one of we talked about the colors of the jerseys And because, like there's a lot, it's going fast out there. I mean, I know you got a monitor there, but I mean, you're not looking at the monitor to look, you're watching the game. And do you have a preference of the color of lettering on the back of a jersey?
As long as there's a contrast.
Right.
Like
because I know
jerseys and blue numbers don't work
they
well
have
together.
these special jerseys sometimes, and I get it, right? They're having fun and themes and all, but then, wow, I can't see that. Like, I mean, there's a skill to it, I think, probably that, you get to know the players of, I mean, learning the Sarnia Sting is one thing, but the opposition coming in, you really have to I guess maybe you've been doing it long enough that it just comes naturally to you. But then when they do a trade and there's a new player and it's how do you figure that out, right?
I think I've got at least the one thing I've been fortunate with being around the league and some work I do with the OHL separately as well with the OHL draft and my weekly radio show. Yeah. So you get a chance to kind of have some exposure. For me, I look at it, obviously I'm doing my prep and, prepping some facts and stats and everything about the players. And it's kind of like, sure, there are 40, but 20 being the Sting, I already know. I see them all the time. Yeah. So now it's concentrated on the other 20. I'll even sometimes, like even during warm-up, I'll just kind of watch warm-up and even with my eyes, just kind of follow around. And it's almost like as if doing a little bit of play-by-play in my head. Yeah. It's like that muscle memory in a way where I'll watch and it's sort of like, if it was Windsor, it'd be like, okay, Greentree, Cristoforo, Nesbitt, Woodall, just as they're going one to the other. Well, and
television's different than radio. I always tease Lee, like, the face for radio, all that stuff. But
the hair.
But, right.
I say it to his face,
we
too.
Love you, okay. Lee. We love you. He's like, I know, guys. But, I mean, and not to take away anything from radio, but, like, there's a visual aspect that you don't have to be concerned about as much on radio. Like when you're in front of the camera, like right now, like you got to be on your game, so to speak. The smile, you can't see something and go and shake. You know what I mean? Like, how is that hard to hold composure, I guess?
Yeah, I think there's two different avenues. If you're on camera, like when hosting and doing player interviews, the camera's on. And you have to treat it. Over the years, I've had people try to, make faces behind the camera.
Oh, yeah.
One of the YourTV Peterborough manager, when I was doing stuff, he'd be trying to make faces and everything at me. And you just sort of learn to battle through. You do that. The nice advantage with TV from the hockey side of it is you don't have to paint the full picture. You fill in the blanks.
Yeah, right.
You fill in the blanks where someone at home can't necessarily tell that's this person or this person. Yeah. Where radio, you have to paint the complete picture. The picture is in front of you. So then you can get into a little storytelling. You get into a little color of what's going on.
Right. You don't have to say, well, he's coming up the sideboard into the corner and he does a...
You don't have to do it all. It's almost like if radio has to do that 100% of the time, TV, you can pull that back to 75.
Right.
Where because some things, I know what's happening. I know that's that person. You still describe it and talk about it, but you don't have to fill in every last detail.
Oh, that's interesting.
They know it's at they know the puck is at the blue line. If they're watching, they can see the puck is at the blue line.
You don't have to say the puck is at the blue line. No kidding, Terry. Right? Yeah. Okay. Let's shift gears a bit from the Sting, because I mean it's a pretty obvious piece of who you are, aside from here at YourTV. But baseball, like you're an umpire in baseball as well, and. We were talking about the Blue Jays recently, right? And that's been fun for you. But umpiring, like refereeing a football game, and again, not to take away from anybody who does that, but baseball, it just seems like a different animal compared to being a referee and even hockey per se, right?
So baseball was one of those. I played, basically like a house league baseball coming up, and same thing. I played like house league hockey, and
you did. I was going to ask you.
Did like a house league hockey. I in both. I think, especially in hockey, my position was left out.
Right.
I came to the rink and they told me to go home. I was a stay-at-home defenseman. I came to the rink and they said you should have stayed at home.
I don't even know how to tie skates, so
But then I played baseball. And then played baseball. I was mostly pitcher and first baseman, and got into umpire like a lot of people do even here with umpiring.
That's a danger. Like, boy, oh boy, you're
making some money.
You're not making any friends.
But you know what? Being a 14, 15-year-old at the time, if anybody's giving a 14 or 15-year-old umpire a hard time, that's their problem.
Well,
and you do that a little bit, but you made some money, cash money at the time. It was like a little part-time job in the summer.
Did it make you a little thicker skinned?
you learn
as you grew. Yeah.
There are skills I learned umpiring that I've used over the years of dealing with difficult people or difficult situations of trying to keep your cool.
Yeah.
I've had it in various personal situations, professional situations. You've got someone, and I had fun with it.
And they get right in your face, like a fan gets right in your face, and they follow to your car after the game. Have you had that kind of crap?
Not a little bit. Usually it was more for me, it's obviously mostly coaches and players.
Yeah, well.
You deal with from that standpoint. But it's funny.
You're blind,
Exactly. But it was great because sometimes you would deal. I always had fun with it. I remember one game I did in Peterborough. Coach from Scarborough is and at the time the rule was if you come out and argue a call, you're gone.
Yeah.
Period. That was the rule. Now, if you ask for time and say, hey, can I ask you a question? That's fine. It was understood. But if you just go out and argue, you're gone. So he's, Coach, you've come out to argue a call, you're out of this game. And I didn't do the big heave-ho. I just literally talked to him. So he's, and I'm speaking to him very calmly.
Yeah.
And I think it drove him nuts.
Yeah.
He wanted that engagement. I wasn't going to give it to him. And that's where other thing is keeping your cool to handle a situation where, for example, I've done games where I've got one coach I'm engaged with, we're talking, and probably just a decent conversation, we're not agreeing, and then you get that other coach who wants to start beaking. Yeah. And I'll be kind of like, I'm talking to you, and I'll say, you need to go back. And I'll be right there to say, like, you need to go back to your dugout. Like, I'm dealing with him, I'm not dealing with you too.
Yeah.
And those kind of things. But then it's a skill that you learn of how to deal with that. And I teach some of the umpire clinics. And I'll talk to them about that too. I'll say, okay, so let's say, it's you and I. You're the coach, I'm the umpire, we're having a conversation. As you're the other umpire, don't come and step in between us. We're having, especially like the umpire's holding their own. If it's a 14-year-old
well, it
umpire
makes that
and an
third
adult
party
different.
feel ganged up on all of a sudden too.
But also kind of like if I'm the umpire and I'm holding my own with you,
just
let me do my thing.
Yeah.
But then at some point in time will come that I'm done with you. Maybe I've already thrown you out and everything like that. You're hanging around as this other umpire. When I go to walk away, you just kind of step in between. I call it like a basketball pick. You step in between because then it's like now you're the one to kind of escort them off. That other umpire is the one.
Bouncer in the bar.
A little bit. But you have that conversation, and I've done that. Where the other thing, I'm the one.
But that'd be helpful in life in general, I think, because just walking around, you can bump into somebody who's difficult. You can do that at the coffee shop.
I had it at a Sting game one night. I had some parent grumpy with me because their kid couldn't hang out in our interview area to do chuck-a-puck.
Oh, yeah.
And because of the netting and everything. So he was mad at me. He hung up behind the camera for while I was still on. And then as soon as we went off camera into break, he starts coming at me, literally poking me in the chest. You ruined my night. And he's, different words he's using that we're not going to use on this show. And I just said, sir, if you have a problem, you need to talk to the Sarnia Sting.
Yeah.
Sir, if you have a problem, you need to talk. And the great thing was,
if you don't engage, right?
But the great thing was the people sitting around, they're regulars who sit around that area where I do the interviews. They started going at him.
Yeah.
Like, get away from him, leave him. And he, out of there he went. Yeah. And that's what was kind of like, they had my back. But at least one of the people in that area said after to Bob, the longtime camera operator.
Oh, Bob,
said,
there's a guy I should talk to.
I can't believe he kept his cool. Like, actually said to Bob, I can't believe he kept his composure like that. I can't believe he kept his cool as this guy's in his face.
Yeah.
Skill learned at umpiring. And there's been various things over the years where things have happened, personally, professionally, where umpiring is what taught me to keep my cool.
Rhino skin, I guess you would call it. And bullets have to bounce off, and that's I would have I'm still learning that one. But so hockey, umpiring, I mean, you're play-by-play. But one of the things I've learned about you over the years is you love to travel. Mm-hmm. And where did that bug come from? Because I know you go to Mexico a lot, but where did that travel bug come from?
My mom and I did a decent amount of traveling when she could. When she was, before her health went downhill. We did usually every year go to Florida. Do the March trip to Florida. We did California. When I was really young, we ddid Hawaii and Mexico, but I was so young I barely remember them. Oh, wow. But did a lot of stuff like that. Yeah, I think I was like 3 or something like that. I don't really remember.
Doesn't count.
Yeah. But did that. And then, after she passed, and didn't really do, for a while, but then I would say my early 20s started kind of getting it back again. Mm-hmm. I would go even just by myself go to places, I remember going to one weekend, I went to Atlanta and Chicago for baseball games. Went to a game in Atlanta and a game in Chicago, and just did that. And so enjoyed over the years. And now, my fiancée Joanna, she loves traveling as well. So
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So it's been great from that standpoint where, she loves to travel as well. And it's kind of been fun to compare notes of places we've either previously been to or maybe one of us has been to. So now we want to show it off to the other one. Like she loves Vancouver Island and Tofino, BC.
Oh, it's great.
She loves that. So then we went out there last March. And such a beautiful spot where she'd been a couple times and now brought me there. And so we kind of compare notes. And, I'd been to Mexico a few times before we were together. So then, obviously she came to Mexico, and we've, her and I have been to Mexico a few times from that.
So, and you, the perfect travel partner, and now you've never been married before.
I was common law with someone for years.
Okay. Yeah. All right. How did you two meet?
You know what? It's kind of funny where we kind of knew, I guess you'd say we knew of each other just even, years ago, but then never really talked. And then we just kind of got talking, and one thing led to another. And
okay, I'm going to ask the question now. Did you chase her or did she chase you?
I will say it's mutual. I think it was mutual. I think we just, we chatted.
You blew it. You're supposed to say, I chased her. I gave you the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, but you're right. Thank you for catching me here.
Right.
No,
yeah.
But she's awesome. She's absolutely awesome. She's a teacher, and the stuff that teachers deal with these days, and the perseverance, and, obviously.
I did that part-time at the college, and I couldn't do it full-time.
But the impact, and I've seen it now, and I have such a greater appreciation. The impact, she's an elementary school teacher, the impact they make on the students, and knowing the stories I hear after where maybe someone who was a student, a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, still want to come back and say hi, still want to see her, and come up and want to hug her and things like that.
Teachers have so much power, I guess, but responsibility, what's that Spider-Man thing, with great power comes great responsibility. But teachers have that, right?
Oh, absolutely. So I have, obviously, always appreciate teachers, but just a greater appreciation now of so many things they have to deal with. I think, kids coming out of the pandemic and things like that as well. So, looking at that, but just the impact, and, the impact she makes on these kids, where I think even in the moment, you probably she doesn't appreciate it, but then we hear the stories. Yeah. And I'll say to her, I said, look at the impact you've made on that kid who, you had them at this grade. Now, a few years later, they still see him. We were out for breakfast not long ago, ran into, she said hi to a student who now I believe had her in let's say grade 2 or grade 3, who's now going into university.
Right.
So recognizes and wants to say hi to teachers. So that impact you make.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
It's always...
I just did an interview with my one of my high school teachers, and it's and I thanked her. It's like, I don't know that you realize the impact, never mind everybody, but on me, and it was this thing, right? And I think teachers really, really appreciate it when you do let them know.
I had some high school teachers that I'd absolutely say the same thing. A couple that I still had kept in touch with even afterwards, because I think some of them also knew my story. They knew my story. I can remember my first day back. I was in grade 9 when Mother passed. It was in February, at the end of February. So now we're getting early March, and I was off. She passed away on a Friday night. I went back to school later the next week, and I kind of get back into the routine. And I remember when I came back to school, it was the afternoon. So I missed the morning, came back in the afternoon. My first class, my teacher, it's like I came along, and my teacher, knowing what I know now, he kind of took me out in the hallway to have a little chat. And I'm sure it was like to see how I was doing.
Well,
knowing the story. And I think there were other teachers
that I had. How were you doing?
I think...
Like, you're 14, Mom's gone. And she didn't just pass. She passed of a very unforgiving disease.
I think it was one where, I think in the moment, you're in survival mode. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And at that age, you're in survival mode. So you and we kind of had a gradual preparation for it, I'll say. Not that I, at that time, knew what was going on, but because she was in and out of hospital. So I would be staying with my uncle or staying with some friends. So it was that gradual separation as opposed to like something sudden.
Right.
So from that standpoint, that's where I say, not that,
But still, you're 14 years old, and you're just, your body's growing, your mind's trying to grow.
Yeah.
You're trying to keep good grade. Like, there's still that stuff happening for you.
Yeah. So I think that's where I had people that I think, and once again, you don't necessarily know it in the time, But I think I knew I had people, even like my, house league hockey coaches and things like that, where they had no problem if somebody had to come pick me up, give me a ride to the game, or give me a ride home from the game. I helped out with the high school hockey team doing some video and stats. And so a lot of times one of the coaches would give me a ride
Takes
home.
a community.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And knowing, lived with my uncle who didn't drive. So some of those cases where if I wasn't getting a ride from someone, I wasn't going to be able to have
Or a car to borrow.
Yeah, or back then, especially at 14, 15, I wasn't driving. You give me a car anyway, I'm not driving. So that's where, looking at that, you had those people. And so as you said, like there's some high school teachers that, even there's one that I had, he was the high school hockey coach. Of course. And we've crossed paths since. He was my math teacher for a couple of different grades, but also even not that long ago, we ran into each other.
Nice.
And it was at the Memorial Cup in Kamloops because Peterborough was out there, and he was there. He and his wife were there, and we talked. Then he came to a Sting game when the Petes were in town because later he was like the education advisor for the Petes, so he knew those players. So we kept in touch. So yeah, those people who certainly made a difference over the years, and I think that's where knowing. I've said to people before, I think if you looked at my story from the 30,000-foot view, sure, I could have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks. Yeah. However people refer to that, that's in your own mind. I could end up on the other side of the tracks. Looking at now, I think proud of the fact that didn't end up on the other side of the tracks. And obviously part of that was because of the people that I had looking out for you. Hey, you're 14, 15, 16. You don't want to acknowledge that people looking out for you. You're indestructible. But teenagers are indestructible.
You recognized opportunity. You kind of discovered a passion at a very young age, which I think is advantageous at a young age if you can kind of figure it out, what you want to follow and do. And you obviously, now you're here, YourTV for many years, the play-by-play with the Sarnia Sting, the baseball, are you living the dream?
I think I've got it pretty good.
Yeah.
I think when you look at it, hey, anytime when you're in a day-to-day situation, no matter what your situation is, you're always like, there's always things that are going to frustrate someone.
Oh, sure.
But I think you take that step back. I know there's people that would give their left arm to probably have some of the opportunities I've had over the years.
Yeah.
Covering the NHL draft, going to many NHL drafts over the years, going to, I had a press pass for a Stanley Cup final game years ago when I went to, that was the night they brought in the junior players when they used to come on Coach's Corner and things like that. Well, that was the Stamkos and Doughty and those guys. So I had a press pass for that game, went to the game, had a chance to do that, a couple NHL All-Star games, obviously 22-ish consecutive Memorial Cups, where it's every game at the Memorial Cup since the last Memorial Cup game that was played that I wasn't at was the 99
There's a lot of traveling too. I know sometimes when I see you at the Sting, it's like, where were you? Oh, I was just in here and I was just over there. Like you get around.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's and then being able to travel sometimes for work, sometimes for personal, or sometimes blending the two, where maybe go to the NHL draft, but then extend it by a few days or extend it by a week where you're already at the destination.
Why wouldn't you?
Work it into that. So, I look at it from that standpoint that, indeed, it was something, got into it 12 and 13 years old, kept going, looked for opportunities, kind of pushed the door open a little bit, even the position here. I had talked to, here I was at the CBC affiliate in Peterborough, and I was in Oshawa for a few years with them and then back to Peterborough. And I talked to Kojiko, it wasn't branded YourTV at the time, obviously. We had some conversations about a full-time position. We went through the process on one. We said, this isn't a good fit for either of us. Yeah. It was behind-the-scenes role, very important behind-the-scenes role. I was already doing on-air for the games on the side, basically, for them. And it was sort of like, well, if I take this job, if I go in the booth, there's now a whole behind-the-scenes. If I take the job and do the job as it's laid out behind the scenes, well, I'm not in the booth anymore. I'm not on air anymore, and I like doing that. I think they like. So we literally went into a second interview, shook hands, and said, "This isn't a fit. Let's move on."
Well, you have to recognize what works and what doesn't, right? And you're so much. Talk about moving parts. To everything that you do, and have done. How do you juggle that in a schedule? Do you have a secretary?
No, it's all me. It's juggling. And I totally admit it can be frustrating for people around me. Okay. Because, for example, obviously you think of it as you know yourself. If somebody says to me, in Joanna's case obviously, but anybody else, hey, what are you doing on this Friday night? chances are I've got a hockey game.
Right.
It's between late September and late March.
But I get annoyed because sometimes people will go, well, I didn't want to ask you because you're always so busy. It's like, wait a minute, ask me anyway.
Yeah.
You might be right.
Yeah.
But so Fridays are busy.
Well, and so that's where, okay, we do have the advantage. We get the schedule
my
in June.
vacation, probably you too, I know, works around the Sting schedule.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's one of the, you say pros and cons. I use cons in very small lowercase letters, but it is one of the challenges of balancing work-life balance at times.
It's part of the
because of the schedule. But yeah, you got into this, I've never had a 9-to-5 job. I don't expect to ever have a 9-to-5 job. There are wonderful 9-to-5 jobs out there. That's just not the industry I'm in. When you get into this industry, I talked to one of my...
I couldn't do it. Jennifer and I just talked about it the other day. I said, I couldn't go get a job. She's like, no, you'd drive me crazy.
Well, one of my colleagues said that to me. He said, when they got into college, one of the first things they got into when they went to college was, okay, you're getting into television. I hope you like working evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
Because guess what? It's not going to be 9 to 5, and it just comes with the territory. And I've had times, obviously now, and then even previously with the family I still have back in Peterborough, there'll be times where something's going to come up, and then it's sort of like, this is scheduled for this time. It's like, I can't.
I always said that's why years ago Doug Bain asked me to get into real estate, and I was like, no, I don't want to work nights and weekends. And then I was a DJ and an entertainer, and now, so I kind of, somebody pointed that out to me the other day. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I am doing that. You've always heard people say, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Do you believe that?
I think there's a lot to that. I think like anything, there's always, depending on what you're actually doing, there's some aspects of probably what you do that is a job.
Still work.
It's still work, but yet at the same time, you take the best parts of it. Like anything, someone who's maybe they love being in, well, let's just say you just said real estate. Let's say someone who loves being in real estate, loves the people. Okay, but there's still paperwork to do. They're still chasing people. There's still things dealing with lawyers. Yeah. Stuff that probably feels more like a job. Yeah. They like showing the houses. They like interacting with the people. The fun stuff. Most things come with something that
being in a band requires rehearsal.
Yeah.
You're going to be a rock star.
Well, practice. You're an athlete. It's the practices and the workouts. So you name it. But as I say, I look at that and, I've never had I'll call it a factory job. I've never had anything like that. And I just don't think I was ever suited for that.
Yeah.
And people that do it, I marvel at them. I got a tour. One of the events I got to do years ago, talk about blessed of doing events. I got to do an event at General Motors in Oshawa where some guy named Dale Earnhardt was the guest.
Oh, I remember you mentioned
Dale Earnhardt and Dale Jr. Dale Jr. wasn't the big name at the time.
Wow.
And so we got to see what people are doing on the line.
Yeah.
And I marveled at it because I thought, I can't do that. I couldn't do that. So I appreciated and marveled at what they did. And, because we got a chance, we were literally on the GM line as this press event was going on, because Dale Earnhardt was a Chevy guy, so at a GM place, and he was actually he owned a dealership down in North Carolina. But yeah, he was in as a guest of GM Canada, and we got to cover it. And, so you talk about seeing people and interviewing people that over the years and crossing paths, a lot of hockey, obviously, for me, but cross paths, a little bit of baseball people, some football people over the years in the Canadian League. Did a bit of coverage of the Argos years ago.
Politicians.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple politicians.
Let's switch gears a little bit, and I know we're not going to go down any rabbit holes, but I mean, locally here at YourTV, you've had, you have different, Mayor Bradley on and different councillors and stuff. That's kind of a different thing to sports. Like sports is more typically positive, I guess. It can bring in some negative talk sometimes as an interviewer. How do you handle that? I think, you talk about, obviously people know me a lot with sports, but I've always had an interest in politics. Yeah, me too.
Not necessarily to dive right into it, but an interest. I got the OAC Politics Award at my high school. Oh. Yeah, OAC was a thing back then.
Okay.
I had the top mark, and I had some great debates with my teacher back then.
Right.
I found
I did too, but I usually ended up in the office.
Well, we had some great debates because it felt like he'd always push one angle, so I'd always take the other side, just to provide balance. And people in the class would kind of like get him, because they could tell he was going down one road, so I'd try to provide balance, basically. And he loved it because he loved that there was engagement, and then it got other people engaged.
Right.
But what I find, and it's our role here at YourTV, and I find it myself, is I want to hear their story. I want to hear what they feel. whether I agree with it or not at that moment doesn't matter.
You mean you listen?
Yes.
What a great idea.
I know. So you have people, whether it's the local level, federal level, provincial level. First of all, from your TV standpoint, we work with everyone. We work with everyone.
You have to.
When we have federal, provincial, municipal elections, we give every candidate, we call it the old free time, where they get a chance to, whether it's a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or to appear on a show, to tell the viewer out there and to tell the community why they're running, what they stand for. And we've done different formats. We've done one format where we just turn a camera on, hit record. They speak to the camera for 2-3 minutes. They usually have a set time.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm running for this. Here's why I'm running. Here's what I believe in. It's unfiltered. This is what because we want the public to know what they stand for. And then the public decides. Unfortunately, we have too much out there now, I find, where people are telling you what you should think versus, no, this is what this, I always like, it goes back to my news.
Represent.
Yeah, it even goes back to my news background. Here's an issue. This person's for it and tells you why they're for it. This person's against it. Here's why they're against it. And then the story stops.
Right.
You, as the viewer, I've given you the for, I've given you the against. It's up to you to figure out.
Well, but and it's good that I think that's what makes local TV unique. It's not just, okay, we're just putting out there what's happening. In the big news world, the CNNs of the world, I'll say it, constantly negative news. There's an entertainment aspect there. There's a lot of pressure to get the views, which honestly is quite similar to social media in some aspects. But you remove that, right? You just cold hard facts, tell the story, there it is.
You hinted at US. The only newscasts in the US anymore, and they were the ones that were always there, your 6:30 of the major 3 big networks. Yeah, people sometimes say, oh, they're slanted that way, because sometimes they don't want to hear. Those are the facts, but the facts don't fit their narrative.
Yeah, so
but at the end of the day, they're delivering it that way. Versus most of those other stations and the big 3 news, all 24-hour news networks, they are entertainment. They're entertainment programming based on the audience they have. You go to one, they cater to one side.
News, if you ask me that.
Yeah, if you're watching this one, they cater to this audience. They know that's their audience. Yeah. You go to this one, they cater to that one.
Well, right.
So versus what we do, I remember one of the counselors years ago, I don't think he's on council anymore, said the ultimate reality show with Sarnia City Council, because it's unfiltered, it's not touched, there's no editing, and there have been many times where someone will say to a counselor, I heard you said this about this issue. Said, well, why don't you go back and watch the meeting, and you'll see exactly what I said. Yeah. And they'll come back and say, oh, okay, well, that's because somebody told me what you said, or I heard a little snippet.
It's the old telephone game.
But watch, I spoke about it for 60 seconds, you heard about 8. Yeah. So now listen to the whole 60 seconds of what I said.
Quoting one line out of the Bible instead of reading the whole paragraph, right? Yeah.
But so that's where we look at that. So sure, even
it's an emotional thing, though. Politics, right? You know, when you get somebody in the studio and they're really passionate about their belief and what they're trying to do, that can get a little heightened at times.
I would say it's the case where you try to always provide balance.
Yeah.
So if a person, first of all, if they don't believe that this should happen in Sarnia, okay, they're saying they believe this shouldn't happen, and here's why it shouldn't happen. It's up to the viewer to believe them or not, or agree with them or not. Where we try to provide some balance is if we know someone's kind of going too far, we'll call it too far one way, where now they're maybe, borderline slandering people or slandering a situation. Now let's bring it back to a bit of a fact check. And it's not necessarily like the fact checking you hear in the States, but just to say, almost take like the devil's advocate a little bit to then provide some balance. I can remember, like, we used to do a monthly show with Bob Bailey. And when Bob was in opposition, hey, if you're in opposition, you don't vote for anything the government does. That's just the way that, His Majesty's loyal opposition.
Yeah.
So I said to Bob the one time, I said, so is there anything they could have put in the budget you would have voted for? And he said, yeah, we'd have to really think about that. But, at the end of the day, our role is to oppose and look for alternatives. But the point was just to bring it back to the middle a little bit and bring it back. And
reel it in.
Oh, we got along. Bob and I got along great. Yeah. Because we could have those conversations.
Bob's great. I love talking to him.
Oh, absolutely. So that's where you look at that. And obviously, same thing at the municipal level now. Things have been pretty heated. Okay, we both agree with the word heated for the last 6 or 7 years in some cases, but especially the last 3. But I look at where, at the end of the day, we give someone an opportunity to tell their side of the story, hopefully when you look at a program as a whole, there's a balance there.
Yep.
And then knowing they're telling their side of the story. And then, but at the end of the day, we're not here to make up your mind. You know, people every 4 years have a chance to make up their mind when they vote, and certain issues obviously come along. They have a chance where we just provide information. Part of the information is, you know, you think of, let's just say there was you want to build an apartment building. Dave Burrows wants to build an apartment building. Okay, so we have Dave on the show about why he wants to build the apartment building, what the project's about, what's going to happen. Then maybe we have this city councilor who's against it, why they're against it, this city councilor who's for it, why they're for it. Okay, we've provided a balance.
Yeah.
We're not telling anybody, you know, what to think. And, you know, look at obviously a lot of the talk with the homelessness and what to do with the homelessness situation, which is a terrible situation no matter what, of having people.
I've lived in Sarnia all my life, Terry, and it's saddening. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of things. It's saddening to see happening, and yeah, I don't know where we're headed with that.
Well, and the thing that we try to, you know, and that's the thing with that is, once again, try to tell as many stories and also the information. How people out there believe it should be handled is their own opinion.
That's right.
Whether it's a realistic option or not, once again, that's for somebody else to figure out. The one thing I look at that, you know, talk about going, we could go down a rabbit hole, but with the fortunate with being able to travel, I think sometimes people here because they only know here.
Yeah.
And I found that since living here, there's a lot of people who only know what happens here. They've only ever known what's happened here. So when they see something like the homelessness situation, it's like, well, just so you know, that is an issue everywhere.
Yeah. It's
an issue across other cities in Ontario, other cities across Canada. And I've been fortunate where, you know, downtown Kamloops, you look around, there was a lot of homeless there.
I remember being
Seattle.
12 years old walking through that with my mother in
Yeah.
BC and going, what the heck is going on here?
Seattle, downtown Seattle, really nice
New
hotel.
Orleans,
Yeah, downtown Seattle, the really nice hotel, down to the Pike Place Market. There's a block where you feel like you're running a gauntlet.
Yeah.
And it's where a lot of the homeless are either in the alleys or on the streets. Like, it is everywhere.
Yeah,
Any city I've gone to.
I think it's just, we got to start wrapping up here, but because he understands time. But not Sarnia, right? You know, like I understand what you're saying until I started traveling and going, wow, this is here. But I've lived here all my life, and I was like, maybe it was because I was younger, it was hidden. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of it was couch surfing for many years, but it's Sarnia. It's like, why is this happening here? We're just like here's the world, and here's Sarnia a little over here on its own in a nice little peaceful town.
Some stuff gets to Sarnia a little later than other places.
Yes.
I think some of the advancements and things like that. Electronic voting in elections, that came to Sarnia a little later than other places. That's municipal. But the point being that it's at the end of the day, it happens everywhere. People that maybe only know this area, but no, sometimes stuff comes a little bit later.
Yeah.
But you know, it's an issue everywhere to deal with, and let's hope that, you know, progress is made. You know, people with bigger business cards than you and I are gonna figure. But, you know, let's just think about our neighbor.
Right. You talk. I'm going to wrap it up this way. I know there's so much more we can talk about, and we probably will after the camera's off. But you talk about impact, and you know, I've known of you for many years. In, you know, recent years, I guess 10 years with this thing, we've gotten to know each other, and we've had a lot of conversations, and I've learned a lot about you, and you also have an impact on this community. And I talked to a few people going, oh, I'm interviewing Terry Doyle. What are you going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about this. I don't know where that's going to go, but thank you for what you do, because you do have an impact. You've had an impact on me. I've learned a lot from you, and I'm grateful for that, and I know many others are as well. So, Terry Doyle, keep doing what you're doing, and I can't wait to find out where are you getting married, or have you picked a date yet?
We haven't picked a date yet. We're working on that.
Something in nature. That'll be big news on YourTV.
Yeah, something naturey, something from that standpoint. We're still working on it.
All right, sounds good, Terry. Thanks so much.
Dave.
Thanks to all of you for watching. As always, you know what I'm going to say. Click the share button so we can share Terry's story. But as always, that's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week, and even better weekend. We'll see you next time right here in the show. Bye-bye.